This may be the scariest story ever that I've ever heard. A guy writes his experience and he says that his wife started peeking at him. At first, it was pranks. So he'd be like in the kitchen cooking his dinner and he'd notice or he'd feel like someone was watching him and he'd turn around and his wife was just... He said that it always used to make him jump, make him scared. She was hiding behind walls, under tables, and she'd never say anything. When she was caught, she'd just run away. She started doing it in really obscure places, like she'd get in an ottoman and just have her eyes poking out. It really started to freak him out and scare him, so he used to shout at her. And then he said that it kind of stopped for a bit. And while they were having dinner one night, he said, "Oh, you're not peeking at me anymore." And she said, "Maybe I'm just getting better at it and you're not noticing me." So then it starts getting creepy again and he's noticing her a bit more. It's scaring him even more that she's not reacting to it. She's not laughing. She's not going, "Hey, I got you." She just runs away, walks away and never acknowledges it. And there's one time where he's in the bathroom and he's hearing this weird sound. And he gets in the shower, he's locked the bathroom door. And when he turns after being in the shower for God knows how many minutes, she's peeking around the curtain at him and her hair and her face is soaking wet and it really scares him. So he shouts at her saying "This needs to stop." And she goes and he gets out the shower and he locks the bathroom door because he's too scared to be around his wife. And he says he's in this room for 45, 50 minutes and he starts hearing this really heavy breathing, but excited breathing. And he thinks that she's next to the door, but he's too scared to look underneath the door in case she's under there staring. And then he says that he's working up the courage to unlock the door when he notices the cupboard in the bathroom door is slightly ajar and she's just been in that cupboard. I feel sick saying this. She's just standing in this cupboard, just staring at him for 45, 50 minutes. And she looks excited that he's caught her out. So he unlocks the door, he runs to the bedroom, grabs the bag and gets in his car and drives away because he's like, "I don't want to live like this. It's gone further than a prank. She's scaring me." He goes to his brother's house and he tries to explain what's going on. And his brother's like, "Yeah, okay then." And his brother's wife's like, "I think she's just playing a prank." And he's like, "No, it's gone beyond a prank. It's terrifying. It's like she's haunting me. She's a creep." And then his wife starts texting him saying where have you gone? Why are you doing this? But never apologising, never saying sorry. And he just replies "You know what you're doing. Until you admit to what you're doing and it stops, I'm not coming home." He decides to stay the night at his brother's house. And when they're all getting ready for bed, they're in the lounge. She's there at the window and there's saliva marks on the window and she's just staring at them. And they all get creeped out, they all scream, and then she's gone. And he's like, "Look, I'm telling you, there's something wrong with her." So he calls her mum and he says, "Look, what's going on?" And this mum just declines even talking about it. She's like, "I don't have time for this, bye." She obviously knows something's going on. He stays at his brother's house for a while. I don't know how long, but he says he's there for a while and he finally needs to get more clothes and he works up the courage to go to the house. So when they get to the house, they go open the doors and it's all dark. She's shut all the curtains. It's in the middle of the daytime, but it's dark. So the brother goes around and he's opening some curtains and they can see that the place is just trashed. And all of the family photos have just been shattered. She's just trashed the place. And he goes upstairs to the bedroom to get his clothes. And as he's going up the stairs, he can smell rot and decay. I'd turn around. I'm not dealing with that. I'd call the police. No. Go into the bedroom and that's where a load of the mess is. There's photos strewn over the place, broken picture frames, just shit everywhere. And he's getting his clothes. And as he lifts up a pile of his clothes, he notices an eyeball. But he says it's a small eyeball, like an animal's. And in the cupboard, there's just eyes of different shapes and sizes that are clearly just from murdered animals. And he shouts and freaks out. And his brother's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Something isn't right here." And that's when he starts hearing that excited, raspy breathing. And he looks under the bed and she's there just staring at him, excited that she's being caught. And he says that he was just petrified. He just stood there and he said to his brother, like, go and get help, go and get help. And his brother's like coming to the bedroom. He's like, don't come in here, go and get help. Her hands are covered in blood because she's like holding this glass and it's just been cut in her hands. And it gets down to a level and he's like, look, babe, you need help. I want to help you. After all, it's his wife, a creepy motherfucker, but it's his wife. And she reaches her hand out to him and he goes to grab it and then she stabs him with a bit of glass. And then he's like, what the fuck, bitch? And then he's just like, what? And he says that at that moment he knew that that wasn't his wife anymore, and they just ran down those stairs. He said that he felt like she was running after them, but they didn't want to turn around, and they got in the car and they drove away. He was too scared to go to the brother's house, and so was the brother, because she'd already been to this house. And he says he ended it, and we haven't had an update from him yet, but he ended it saying that he got himself in a hotel room, and he says that he keeps on feeling like someone's watching him. Imagine being haunted by your wife, by something living. That's disgusting. This is a really scary story, and if you want to sleep tonight, maybe save this video and watch it in the daytime. I'm not joking. A guy writes this story because something has woken him up at 3 a.m. He's woken up by the really familiar sound of his front door rattling. And he's got one of those front doors that as soon as it's shut, it automatically locks. So if you haven't got your keys, you're not getting back inside. And it sounds like someone's pushing up against the front door. So immediately he opens up his Ring doorbell phone app and he looks at the camera and he sees his wife standing outside. It's freezing cold, it's 3 a.m, but his wife is standing outside, kind of shivering, just standing at the door. Oh, I've literally got shivers. Now, he doesn't get up to let his wife in. He checks who's lying next to him in bed. And he turns over and he shines the torch on the person laying next to him. And it's his wife. And he checks, that's my wife. And he looks back at the app. And he can't figure out who this person is. It's definitely his wife. He knows what his wife looks like. How can she be in two places at once? He decides to go to the front door to see who it is because part of him thinks maybe it's a burglar. Maybe there's some sort of disguise going on and they're pretending to be the wife to get in the house. He approaches the door, he doesn't open it, and he just says, who is it? And he hears his wife reply. And she says, it's me. I forgot my keys in my bag. It's freezing. Please, can you let me in? He says it's the same accent, same annotation, it's his wife. Ooh! He just responds, hold on a minute, and runs straight back to his bedroom. Wakes up his wife that's in bed and says, you've got to see this. His wife wakes up really groggy, like, what are you showing me? And he shows her the door camera and she looks at it and she goes, when was this recorded? And he says, no, this is live. The wife is adamant that that isn't a live video. And he's like, no, I've just been downstairs and I've just spoke to you. You said that you left your keys in the bag, it's freezing and you need to come inside. The husband's saying this like it's a normal occurrence. Like, I don't understand what's going on here. The wife, out of frustration, gets out of bed, opens her curtains, looks down to where the front door is and immediately shuts the curtains and is like, holy shit, that's me. They must both have massive balls because they decide to go downstairs together. And the husband calls out, what's your name? And the wife outside responds with her full name, middle name, which I think, uncalled for, is sus. He says, what's your birthday? She gets it correct. And then he's like, well, what did we have for dinner tonight? And she says it correctly. And she says, you cooked it as well. The husband's kind of now like, what? Which one's my wife? The inside wife is like trying to control herself. And she's like, what? And he reaches over to her and says, ask it something only you would know. And she's like thinking, what can I ask her? What can I ask her? So then she talks out loud and says, the last time you visited your parents' house, what did they change about your bedroom? And there was a really long pause. And the wife outside responds, who is that? What's going on? Noticing that there's another woman talking to her. She's talking to herself. She also says, you're really starting to freak me out. What's going on? Why don't you let me inside? And both husband and wife inside just say, answer the question. There's a really long pause and it's answered correctly. She knows exactly the answer. Her parents had moved her niece and nephew's beds into her old bedroom. How does she know all this? The inside wife is just shitting herself, and she grabs her husband's hand and she runs back to the bedroom and she locks the door and she's like, we are not leaving this house. Like, no. They bring up the Ring doorbell app and they see the outside wife walk off into the backyard, presumably to find the spare key. If she knows all of these personal answers, surely she must know where the spare key is. Which wife was his real wife? Who was standing outside? I've honestly got chills. I don't know about you, but I'm never looking at my Ring doorbell app in the middle of the night if I hear a noise. Never going to do it. Like, what would you do if you saw that? Pray. I'd probably pray. I'm going to start telling stories about fairies and angels rather than creepy wives. This story is disgusting. 1972, a Jane Doe walks into Cedars-Sinai Hospital. She's in a blood-stained dress. Not unusual for a hospital, but immediately staff know that there's something not quite right about her. She's got makeup all over her face, like she's been crying, yet her face has this sheen to it, like it's a plastic mannequin kind of face. Like human, but not giving off the vibes, you know? Also has this really disgusting smell about her, like sickly, sweet smell that patients around her are heaving, they're gipping. They say that she smells like bins, like bin juice. Patients around her are vomiting, and even 2 members of staff vomited. The worst smell ever is bin juice. They're asking her questions, they're trying to get to know who she is. She's not opening her mouth. When she does open her mouth, there's like a mangled up kitten in there. That's not funny. They also see her teeth, like they're razor sharp, like gaps in between them, razor sharp teeth. The nurses call the head doctor in and he's like, right, we've got to sedate her. Let's figure out what's up with her, maybe do some tests, you know, it is the 70s after all. These 3 nurses are really struggling to keep this woman down while the doctor's like loading up his needle or whatever. She's got mad strength, she stinks. The nurses can't control her anymore. She gets out of the constraints because they also put leather constraints on her hands and feet. She lunges for the doctor. She bites him that bad that he actually dies. He dies later on. And she runs from the hospital and she's never seen again. Somebody sent me this story and it's actually vile, and that's coming from me. This might be the worst I've ever heard. And I know I keep on saying that, but they just keep on getting worse. I can't trump it. So in 2012, there's a young guy and he's living in Rouboix, France. I think it's Rouboix, R-U-B-O-I-X. He's 22 years old, he's a student, and he's just rented a bedsit. Fully furnished, bed, sofa, kitchen, the lot. And it's in a place where there's other bed sits, lots of students, lots of single people. It's great location, great price, one problem, it stinks. It's a stinky apartment, and he's like, do you know what, I'll just clean up. He cleans up the apartment, smell's still there. Brings in the big guns. His mum comes and cleans up, and his mum's like, this is a bigger problem. This isn't just, you know, like a dirty carpet. This stinks. This is a problem with the pipes, maybe mould. Calls up the landlord. The landlord's like, you know what? You're not the first person to complain about the smell in here, but we have had fumigators in here. We've had the walls tested. It might just be a smelly building. You know, there's old pipes in here. Something might have died in the walls years ago. A rat, a cat, and we can't get to it because it's all solid, but you're just going to live with it. So he learns to live with it. He learns to get used to it. Sometimes the smell is really bad. Sometimes it's not as bad as other times. I guess he has a lot of Febreze, who knows. A few months in, he's noticing some other things are off. It looks like his food's being stolen. And he's like, I know someone's stealing my food, but I'm a student. A lot of people that live here are student, or they're broke people. People are going to steal my food, whatever. So he makes a point to lock his fridge, his cupboards, and he puts the key to the padlock in a drawer by the side of his bed. So only he knows where it is. But food is still going missing. And he's still finding like the odd little crumb on the odd little wrapper. He just thinks, you know what? Other people are stealing my food. They're probably worse off than me. It is what it is, you know? C'est la vie. He's French. Something else that's unusual is that his bed sometimes feels a bit off centre. And then he thinks maybe the floorboards are not level. And sometimes it feels like it's kind of a bit wobbly, a bit moving about. And it's like, you know what? It's just a crickety old bed. He lives like this for months. Happy. Still got a stinky apartment. One night he's in bed watching TV and it feels like there's something in his mattress, like something moving about. It happens a few more times. He's like, oh my God, there's rats. I need to get this out. And he goes to put his hand underneath the bed to feel like if anything's there. And his hand touches something cold and leathery. Let's take some bets on where you think this is going. He lifts the mattress, and what he finds looking back up at him is an old, frail, thin lady smiling up at him. She's wedged in between the wooden slats of his bed, but she's just smiling away at him. He's like, oh shit, leaves his apartment, knocks on his neighbour's door and is like, call the police now. There's a lady in my mattress. She's living in my mattress. I think she's alive because she's smiling at me, but she may have been dead. Call the police. Police are called. That French dude's just like, I ain't going in my apartment until the police are here. Anyway, no one's there. She's gone. She's up and she's left. Manages to describe her, so they do like a live sketch drawing of her and they do an investigation. Now the smell of the apartment, that stinky smell, that was uncovered what that was quite quickly. That was this lady's feces. She'd just done a business under the bed the entire time while she slept there. They did speak to people in the area saying, do you recognise this woman? And people did. Apparently she's been in the area for ages. People saw her walking about, going to shops. She lived in the area. They also found that she'd lived underneath that mattress for years, for a very, very long time. Previous tenants had complained about the smell, complained about similar situations where things were going missing. It's because she was living in their bed the entire time. The entire time! The biggest thing to take from this is that the landlord was obviously lying. He didn't get the carpets cleaned because he would have had to have moved the bed. He also didn't get a fumigator in because, again, they would have had to move the bed. And she was never discovered. I also think it must have been like a divan bed, like a box bed, because how she wouldn't be discovered by other people that live there, I have no idea. But one of the creepiest things of all is that she etched in the wooden slat frames, surrounded by her own doo-doo. She'd etched in, I've been here all along, will you ever find me? People are so weird. People are so weird. They never found this woman. When he lifted that mattress and found her, she got out of that apartment and was never seen again. This happened in 2012. So she could still be in the local area. She could be living under your bed if you're in Roubaix, France. So if there's a smell going on, you might want to check. I've got the creepiest story to tell you. I've just read it and I need to tell you before I forget it. It's honestly disgusting. It's about a woman that has a sugar daddy and he asks her to do really weird, peculiar favours for him. This girl's a student and she wants to earn some extra cash, but she doesn't want to get a job and actually work. I mean, don't we all? So she decides to look on a sugar daddy website. So she's browsing through and she's like, these are all creeps. I don't actually want a relationship or do anything intimate. I just want somebody to give me money. I mean, dream life, right? She sees an ad that says, sugar baby wanted, no relationship. Other words used. So she's like, I'm going to shoot my shot, you know, just messages him. Hi. Instantly gets a reply. Hey, sweetheart. And she's like, oh, don't call me sweetheart, but whatever. I'm going to entertain the conversation. They're chatting, getting to know each other. She finds out his name's Jack, doesn't want no relationship of sorts. And he says, can you give me your number or I prefer to use Kik? I think Kik was like a private messaging site. I don't actually know. I'm a bit too young for that. Anyway, she's like, it's not 2011. I don't know what Kik is. I don't have that app, but here's my number. Let's just talk on there. So he's like, yeah, sound. Also give me your Venmo and I'll send you some cash if you do me a favour. So she's just like, okay, what's this favour? Like, what do you want from me? And he says, I just want you to do a few little favours for me here and there. And I'll send you some cash. Like, tonight, can you pick up a parcel for me? She's like, picking up a parcel sounds easy enough to me. Yes, I'll do it. So he instantly Venmos her £700. And she's like, that's really easy money. And he says, okay, when you get there, don't look in the parcel. But also when you deliver it to my house, I'm not there. You're going to have to let yourself in the house. But make sure you lock the door twice. This is the first of the odd requests. Easy way to make 700 quid though. And she's like, okay, I'm going to pick up this parcel for him. Gets the address. On her way there, she's thinking, oh, we're going to get kidnapped. Are they going to adopt me? Like, general thoughts that women have. She gets to the house and a guy opens the door. It looks a bit rough. And he's like, are you here for jack shit? And she's like, I guess so. And he hands her a shoebox. But this shoebox is like kind of cardboardy and very, very damp. And also is like oozing some sort of liquid from the corners. This guy says, open the car and I'll put it in the boot for you. And he just looks at her and just says, just make sure you watch out. Watch out for what, sir, is what I'd be asking him. Arrives at this house and it's massive. It's like a mansion. And then she notices that her phone is buzzing and she's got a text from Jack. And it says, make sure you don't answer the phone unless it's from Marvin. And she just kind of ignores it. And she's like, I hope he hasn't given my number out to other people. She finds where the spare key is. She makes sure she opens and locks the door twice. And she puts the parcel where he's asked her to on a very specific table. She's like, these are easy rules. She then hears the phone ring. And she's thinking, do I answer it? And she looks around the house. This house is immaculate, perfect, pristine, like a show home. And she finds a mobile phone on a bed. And she picks up the phone and it says that Jack's calling. And she's like, I don't want no one to test me here. I'm just going to ignore it, going to leave. Follows the rules to lock the door twice when she leaves as well. Everything goes fine. And she ends up doing a few more favours for Jack in the future. Earns a good bit of cash. Some of these favours are a bit weird though. Some of these jobs are a bit weird. I wouldn't say it's more of a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship. More like an employee doing some runarounds. One of these jobs is driving a BMW to a random park in a random city and driving a different BMW back. Dropping off various briefcases and oozy wet shoeboxes, taking employees out to dinner. Also, every now and then she's got to babysit like this grown man called Julio, and she gets quite friendly with him and he's now a mate. But she's like, I'm getting paid to do all this, so I'm not complaining. Buys herself some nice furniture, buys herself some nice clothes. She's fine. Nothing that weird's happening. He's just got some odd requests every now and then. One day she gets a buzz on her phone saying, I'm out of town for a little while. I need you to stay at my house. I'll pay you £1,000 a night. He said he'll check in with her in the morning to see if he needs her to stay another night, but there'll be a list of rules on a piece of paper on the dining room table. So she knows the gig, she knows what to do when she gets to the house, unlocks the door twice, blah, 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 goes there. Now, on the dining room, she does find a list of rules. These rules would make me leave. Like, I ain't messing about with these rules. The first two are ones that she already knows. You only answer the phone to Marvin, who, by the way, she's never spoke to, and you have to lock the doors twice. Bear in mind, this girl knows this guy's house quite well and she knows the standard rules, but she's never actually met Jack in person. They've had one phone call with each other, but he's just a stranger. Now, this next rule is a bit weird. You can't use the water between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. And maybe you're just being tight, you know. Maybe there's a water surcharge during that time. And then they just get creepy. And this rule would get me out of that house. This rule is, if the cupboard door at the end of the corridor is open, you must sleep in the library and lock yourself in. But if it's closed, you can sleep in any bedrooms. I'm sorry, what? If that library door is open, I'd be running out of that. I'd be packing my bags. Grand ain't enough, mate. Ain't enough. The rules also say if anybody knocks on the door after 10 p.m, it doesn't matter who they say they are, you do not open that door, no matter how tempted you are. We have a gardener coming at midnight. If he knocks on the window, you need to hide. And also, make sure you turn the TV on static and you need to play it on all night. Do not forget to do this, all in block capitals. Because all the weird shit starts happening around 9 p.m. She's like, 8:50, before I can't use the water, I'm going to go brush my teeth, get in bed. Guess what? That door is open. That cupboard door is open. And she's like, oh, gotta lock myself in the library tonight. Bitch, what? No, you don't. What's open that cupboard door? Somehow she's fine with it and she's like, yeah, I'm going to lock myself in here and go to bed. Falls asleep quite quickly, apparently, because about 10:15 she's woken up by the doorbell ringing and she looks at her phone. It's 10:15. I can't answer that door. And then she can hear who's at the door and they're saying, it's the police, let me in. It's the police, it's the police, you must open up. It's the police, it's the police. And she's like, it was that important. The police are going to break down the door. Like, I'm not answering that door. I'm not failing at this task. Then changes and then it's Jack at the door, knocking on the door saying, let me in, I forgot my key, let me in. She's like, I ain't pissing about, I ain't doing it, you ain't beating me. And she falls back asleep. I don't know how she does it, but she does it. In the morning she gets up and she's like, bit weird last night, but I'm going to get paid £1,000. And then she can hear noises downstairs, like a bit fumbling, like someone's downstairs, and she's like, oh, maybe Jack's come home or he's got a cleaner or something. I'm not expecting this, he usually texts me. She goes downstairs and there's a man in the kitchen and she's just kind of standing at the doorway and he goes, oh, how are you? Did you have a good sleep? And she recognises his voice through a phone conversation that it's Jack. And she's like, oh, hey, I didn't expect you to be here. He's like, yeah, well, I decided to come home early. I'm just making breakfast. Can I make you something? And he makes her some eggs and coffee and the conversation's really awkward. He breaks the silence by saying like, so how was it? And she's like, nothing too weird happened. And he's like, cool. Conversation's that awkward and she lies that she's got to go to school and she's like, I've got to go to class. I'll speak to you later. And he's like, no worries. I'll speak to you when I speak to you. On the way back, she's like, that was really awkward conversation. Like, was he there to catch me out? And then she remembers she didn't turn the TV static on all night. And then she just remembers like, oh my God, he told me to do that. Like, that was the one thing I couldn't forget to do. She's paranoid that she's not going to get paid, or she's never going to like work with him again. And she's just getting really anxious and paranoid that something bad's going to happen. Her phone buzzes and she gets £1,000 through Venmo. And she's like, oh, thank God for that. Like, I've been paid, all good. She then gets a text from Jack. The text says, I'm still out of town. Do you think you can do the same tonight? She rereads it. I'm still out of town. Do you think you could do the same tonight? Who was in the house in the morning? Because it weren't Jack. She doesn't reply to Jack, and she's like, I don't know what I've got myself into. I'm too scared. I don't want to go back to that house. What's going on? And then she gets another text from an unknown number, this time just saying, watch out. What is going on? Who are these people? What has she got involved with? There is a part 2. I haven't read it yet, but I am on my own tonight, and oh God, I need to stop reading scary stories before bed. This is one of the creepiest private investigator stories I've ever read. Honestly, weird. One day, a private investigator receives a call, quite a frantic call, from an elderly sounding gentleman. He says that his wife is out to get him. Now, the PI's used to receiving calls like this, usually from men saying the wife's cheating on him, stealing from him, or out to get him. So it's like, look, calm down. I'll have some space in the next few weeks. We'll catch up and talk over your case then. And this guy's saying, no, it's really, really important. I think she's out to get me. I don't think I've got long left. I really need to speak to you. So expecting to pencil in a meeting in the next week or so, the elderly gentleman says, no, I really need to see you today. I'll pay you more. And that makes the PI be like, yeah, I'm free. Come to my office now. So like clockwork, this elderly gentleman arrives literally 30 minutes later. He looks quite dishevelled, looks quite distressed, like he's just pulled on whatever clothes he could find, hasn't even bothered brushing his hair. He sits down and he just says, my wife is out to get me. I'm scared. I really, really need your help. Says that every morning for the past 6 months he's been woken up at 3:30 a.m. by the sound of dogs barking. He doesn't have a dog, and he says it doesn't sound like a normal dog bark. It's really disorientating, like somebody else is making the sound or they're playing a sound. At first the noise would just wake him up and he'd go back to bed, but one day he decided to get up when he heard the sound. That's when he turned and looked in the doorway of his bedroom, and what he saw shocked him. He saw his wife standing in the doorway, just staring at him, motionless, but behind her were 2 of her friends, just doing the same thing, just staring. Bear in mind, these are like elderly people, like 70, 80 years old. But the weirdest thing, his wife is asleep next to him. This has happened for 6 months. At first, he thought he was dreaming. It was sleep paralysis. By the time he reached for his glasses or stepped out his bed, the figures were gone. His wife, well, the wife in the doorway, her 2 friends, they were gone. But the back door was left unlocked, and so was the gate outside, meaning that someone was entering his house. Like I said, his wife was always asleep next to him. So he used to say to her, I need you to get up. I need you to see these people. And she's saying, you're dreaming, you know, you're getting old. We're getting old. It's normal. It's sleep paralysis. The PI's expecting maybe it's a little bit early on dementia, maybe it's some dreams, lucid dreaming, but he wants to get paid. He's thinking, this guy's going to pay up. So he says, right, tomorrow morning, I'll stake out your house for you. I'll get some photos and I'll let you know if I see anyone coming. The PI parks outside of the house at 9 p.m. and he sees the old man's wife come back from her book club, walking home, sees the lights on for a little while, and at about 11 p.m, they go to bed. During that time, he's into his podcast, eating some donuts, doing whatever PIs do. However, around 3 a.m, he notices that everything around him goes eerily still and eerily quiet. Then he's shocked because at 3:30 he hears the sounds of dogs barking. But it's like the elderly man said, it's like multiple dogs barking. It's like every single dog in the nearby area is just barking all at once. He stays in his car and he looks out his windows, and as he looks in his rearview mirror, he sees 3 women in long green hooded gowns just pop up like NPC characters. He's taking photos of these women as they're walking up the road towards the elderly gentleman's house, and he can't quite believe what he's seeing. But as these women walk past the car, he notices that it's not 3 women, it's 2 women dragging a mannequin with them. He's taking photos of all this. He sees them approach the gate, unlock it, and go around the back of the house where they're then out of view. He is too scared to get out of his car, rightly so. But he just has the worst feeling in his stomach, and he's thinking, I can't let these women enter this house with this couple inside. What are they going to do? What are they doing? So he calls the elderly gentleman's phone, and that's when just moments later he sees the lights turn on and he sees these two figures and their mannequin they're holding run away. He speaks to the old man and says, let's debrief in a few hours. I need to look at these photos and we'll have a chat about everything I've seen. So a few hours later, the old man goes into the PI's office and he shows him the photos. And at first, the old man is just so happy. He just starts crying, saying, I'm so glad it's not my wife. I'm so glad that she's not out to get me. And the PI's like, but who are these women? Why are they doing this? For 6 months they've been doing this to you. Are you sure your wife's not involved? And he says, no, we recognise these women. They were shunned from my wife's book club a few years ago. They're not all there and they just go about tormenting people. Sorry, what? 2 elderly women have dressed a mannequin to look like your wife. They're entering your house at 4 a.m. every single morning, staring at you. And you're telling me your wife doesn't know this and only you're waking up? Anyway, that's a true story. People are weird. Just imagine, what would you do? Elderly women at most playing this prank on an old man. Give him an heart attack. Maybe that was their goal. Maybe it was their goal. Or maybe it was something a little bit more sinister. Maybe it was something more of the occult. What do you think? This is one of the scariest stories I've ever read. So there's a guy that lives in a really quiet suburban neighbourhood. He's in his 30s and he's one of the youngest people that live there. Everyone else is pretty much retired. Because he's one of the youngest people that live there, he often helps them out with their cars, lifting heavy objects, going in their lofts for them. He's used to getting knocks on his door for really mundane tasks. So it's a weekend, it's his day off work. He decides to have a lazy morning, cook himself breakfast, eggs, bacon, sausage, the lot, and he gets a frantic knock at the door. And he's like, I know it's going to be, and it's going to be Jim next door. It's going to be Jim next door, he's going to want something, and I don't want to answer the door. He keeps on hearing this knocking, and he's literally just about to tuck in his breakfast, and he's like, I'll go and answer the door. So as he goes, he's got a little glass panel and he looks through and it's Jim, the next door neighbour. He rolls his eye like, oh my God, what does this guy want? And Jim sees him as well. And he's like, open the door, please open the door, I need you. And like, Jim is a little bit senile. You know, sometimes he's going a bit crazy, a bit doolally. And the other neighbours kind of want to send him to the loony bin. So the guy opens the door and he's like, what do you want, Jim? Jim just says, I really need you to come over the house. And he's like, Jim, I've just sat down for breakfast. It's a Saturday morning. It's early. I'm not even dressed. I'm in my pyjamas. And he's like, I really need you to come around the house and check something out. Something's there. And he's like, what do you mean something's there? And he's like, I need you to come around to see if you can see it as well. If I ask anybody else, they're going to send me to the loony bin because they all think I'm crazy. So the guy's like, you just want me to come around the house to see if I can see something? And Jim's like, yes, please do it. So they both go around to Jim's house and he's standing in his living room and he's like, what do you need me to do, Jim? And he's like, it's my wife, she's upstairs. So the guy's like, okay, is your wife okay? And the guy's like, she looks fine, but she can't be my wife. And he's like, what do you mean she can't be your wife? What do you mean she looks okay? Like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. And he says, my wife's in Cleveland, gone to see our daughter for the weekend. And he's like, well, she can't be in Cleveland because you've just told me she's upstairs. And he's like, no, I can see my wife upstairs. She's my wife, but she doesn't look like my wife. The guy's just in the living room, just a bit wound up, being like, this guy, like, he needs his kids to sort this out. Like, I'm not his carer. And he's like, look, your wife's clearly not in Cleveland. She's clearly upstairs, or you are imagining your wife being there. And he's like, just go and have a look for me. And he says, have you spoke to her? And he says, I'm not speaking to that woman because she's not my wife. I called my wife this morning and she's in Cleveland. And he's like, okay. And what did she say? Well, she said that she made it there fine. And when I saw the woman at the top of the stairs, I called my wife to check that she was definitely in Cleveland, and she was. So the guy just wants to get the whole thing over and done with. He's like, you just want me to go upstairs and check on your wife? And he says, yeah, but she looks different. She doesn't look threatening, but I feel threatened by her. And it's like, okay then. So he goes towards the top of the stairs and he just stops. And there's a woman at the top of the stairs looking round the corner at him. I'd run out of that house. So the bloke just shouts up to her, Mrs. Richmond, are you okay? Thinking it's just this old lady being a freak at the top of the stairs. And she gets this big grin on her face and her nose is like pushed up against the wall, so she's like this, looking like Miss Piggy, you know. The guy's just like, Frank, you need to call your wife for me and prove that she's in Cleveland because right now She looks like she's at the top of the stairs. So Frank goes over to the phone and he calls and he's chatting and he's talking to his wife in Cleveland. So the guy at the bottom of the stairs is starting to feel a bit creeped out and he's like, this is a joke. They clearly don't know what's going on here. They need some help. And he's just shouting upstairs, Mrs. Richmond, do you need help? Do you need me to call someone? Frank, I think you better call 911. And then she just starts smiling, saying, come play with me. Come play with me. What the fuck? So our guy just backs up and he's like, Frank, I can't be around for this. Call 911. Notice that Frank stopped speaking on the phone and he can hear a voice over the phone just kind of like hanging loose, like his wife is still on the other end. And he looks around and he can't see Frank. And he's like, Frank, do you want to come with me? Frank, call 911. And he backs away to the door and then he sees Frank. Come play with me. Round the fucking corner. Now he thinks that these two old people are playing some sick joke on him. And he's like, you guys are sick. Don't ever ask me for help again. Runs over to his house because he's clearly freaked out. He locks the door. This guy's freaked out. He sits down, watches TV, starts digging his breakfast, and he just feels like someone's watching him. This guy's convinced that the guy that he's watching on the TV is also peeking at him and he's just like, I need to shake this out of my head. Like, I'm scared. This isn't really happening. But he still feels like he's being watched. He walks over to the window where he can see his neighbour's house. There's Frank and Mrs. Richmond just staring at him through their window. And then he starts hearing this really awful, menacing laugh coming from inside his house. And someone says, come play with me. And that's where the story ends. Are you joking me? I kind of don't want to know, but I want to know. I have a sneaky suspicion that Mr. and Mrs. Richmond might be the peeking wife's parents because it's the same vibe. This is one of the scariest stories I've read in a long while. And you know me. You know, nothing can top the peeking wife, but this one, no. So there's a woman, happily married, and she says that her husband has started asking her a question over and over again, and it's really starting to annoy her. She starts by saying it's a bit of a joker. You know, it comes out with random things all the time, not necessarily funny, but to him it's like a joke. Example, they'll be hugging, they'll be doing something cute and cozy, and he'll be like, your turn to make the waffles. Like, not funny, but for him it's like a bit. One morning, she's downstairs making coffee, and he walks down having just woken up, and he says, can you see me smile? And she says, what? And he replies, what? And she thinks, oh, he was kind of mid-yawn, maybe I didn't hear him say anything. And she goes, sorry, I thought you said something. Long after, when she hands him his coffee, he says it again, but much, much quieter. Can you see me smile? Like a whisper tone. She thinks, oh God, it's another bit. And she goes, okay, that's nice, sweetie. She hands him his coffee, goes to give him a kiss, and notices like a sore, like a cold sore he's got under his lip, but it looks quite bad. She avoids kissing him and she says, I think you need to get some cream on that. She left the room. She also noticed that he had a really bad cough. So she thought maybe he's coming down with an infection. He's got a rash on his face. But for the next week, the rash grew bigger, but also he didn't drop this can you see me smile bit. We're having a phone call. Hey honey, I'm at the grocery store. Do you need anything? Can you see me smile? What do you want me to get you? She just started to ignore it, and it really started to wind her up when they were eating dinner. He'd say it first thing in the morning. He'd say it right before they go to bed. He'd say it. But she didn't react because she just hoped he'd drop it. One evening, they were sat down eating dinner together, and her husband did something that scared her. While he was eating spaghetti, he cocked his head to the side, looked at her dead in the eyes with an awful, horrible grin, and said, can you see me smile? Hell no. Hell no. She gets so angry, and she just throws her fork down and says, enough is enough. Like, it's not landing anymore. It's not funny. I need you to pack it in. And her husband just looks at her and says, like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm just eating my dinner. Like, I don't understand what's wrong. She got so angry that she didn't finish her dinner. She just stormed off upstairs and thought, the only thing that's going to calm me down is a bath. So she runs herself a bath. She's just like chilling, watching YouTube in the bath. She hears the door creak open, but it does it in such a slow way. Like, do we know where this is going? She calls out to her husband. His name's Stephen, by the way. Stephen? No answer. She looks around the room expecting him to say, can you see me smile? Doesn't see anything, doesn't hear anything. When she gets out the bath, written on the mirror, can you see me smile, with a smiley face drawn on it. She then hears really light, creaky footsteps heading away from the bathroom, and she thinks, I'm not even going to entertain him. If this is his way of making up to me, it's not working. So she goes downstairs, she watches TV for a bit, she eventually comes back upstairs to bed, and Stephen's just snoring, fast asleep. She quickly falls asleep, but then she's woken up by the feeling of heaviness over her. So she opens her eyes and sees her husband over her, but like he's above her, propping himself up with his arms, looking over her, breathing heavily, giddily saying, "Can you see me smile?" She notices that the sore in his face is like wet and oozy, and she just screams like, "What the fuck?" And she pushes him off, and he quickly just rolls back over, faces the wall, and pretends to snore. She hits him on the head really hard, like good on her, and she goes, "I've had enough of this. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. Go see a dermatologist as well because your face is gross." Stephen wakes up and he's like, "Why are you hitting me?" And she's like, "Are you joking me? Why are you hitting me?" She gets up, goes sleeps in a different room. Next morning, she wakes up and she just wants to make up for him. And she sees Stephen looking in the mirror of the bathroom. And he's just like opening his mouth and opening his gums, inspecting this wound. And she says, like, "You really need to go see the doctors." And he's like, "My gums, they're not normal. Can you see me smile? They're not normal." And she says, "Look, I just want to make up." And he's just not paying attention. And she goes, "Fine, if you don't want to talk to me, don't talk to me." She goes to work. She tries to call him. He doesn't answer his phone. She texts him. He's not replying. She comes back home. He's hunched over the table, writing, scribbling away in his notebook. And she comes in and she goes, "I'm really sorry about last night. I am really sorry for causing a scene." And he just ignoring her. He's still writing. Approaches the table, puts her hand on his shoulder, and he quickly looks at her and says, "Can you see me smile?" And she notices that his teeth are getting whiter and whiter, like he's bleached them, and his face is getting grey, and this sore is starting to bleed, like he's been chewing away at it. She looks down at the paper and she sees written over and over again, "Can you see me smile?" I'd be getting a divorce at this point. Also starts like hysterically coughing, but in a really horrible way. And when he's coughing, he's going, "Can you see me smile?" Like, I imagine like how Gollum coughs. Gets up off the table and he's approaching her and she's scared. She backs up saying, "Stephen, honey, are you okay? Stephen, do we need to go to see the doctor?" It is her husband after all, and I guess, you know, she's got to be kind to him. And she's like, "I don't want to leave you like this, Stephen, but you're scaring me." He's approaching her, he's doing this awful cough, he's saying it over and over again. She gets in a car and she drives to her mum's house. She says, "Mum, there's something wrong with him. Like, I don't know if it's mental illness, I don't know if he's playing a joke, but there's this thing on his face and he doesn't seem himself." My mum says it's Stephen. He does this thing. He's probably making this joke to make himself feel better. And the thing on his face, get that sorted. Spend the night here with me. Go home tomorrow. So she does just that. She texts him saying, "Look, you scared me. I'm going to spend the night at my mum's. Tomorrow we're going to come home, go see the doctors together." That night she just feels this really intense guilt, thinking, "I've left my husband. He needs my help." And she just knows something's wrong. She gets up super early. She gets up at like 5 a.m. and thinks, "I'm just going to go home now." It's still kind of dark by the time she arrives home, so she kind of creeps into the house. All the lights are off and it stinks. As she opens the bedroom door, she notices that the bed is empty, but Stephen is on the floor and he's moving, like he's doing something with his hands against the wall. She calls out to him and she's like, "Stephen, are you okay?" No noise. "Stephen, are you all right?" And she flicks the light on and she's horrified, written all over the walls in something red, "Can you see me smile? Can you see me smile?" And then she's thinking, he's a madman, like he needs help. He even turns his head to look at her and she screams. This sore in his face is just, there's really no bottom half of his face. It's just sore. Like licking it, he's chewing it, there's blood coming from it. And the sight of him is making her really, really scared. Like he looks like a monster. His hands are also bleeding as well because it's like he's chewed away at the end of his nails, writing, "Can you see me smile?" on the walls. Like, what is wrong with this guy? She backs up, she goes down the stairs, goes to call 911, but she drops her phone. She's scrambling on the floor to find her phone. Stephen kind of overweighs her. He's on top of her and he's just breathing heavily. "Can you see me smiling?" She's squinting away going, "Don't come near me, Stephen. Don't come near me, Stephen. No, no, no." He kind of leans in for a kiss and this bit really fucking freaks me out. But instead of kissing her, he shoves his tongue up her nose. Ugh! Don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but that's fucking gross. And it's just a crawl away, runs to her car, drives straight back to her mum, and she'll wake to mum and go, "Mum, we need to call the police. There's something not right with Stephen. There's something not right with him." And mum looks at her and goes, "What did you say?" She goes, "There's something not right with Stephen, Mum. There's something not right with Stephen." She goes, "Sorry, I thought you said, 'Can you see me smile?'" I told you, this one's gross. Did you know that people used to eat ancient Egyptian mummies? Like, actually ate them. They ground them down and used them as medicine to cure headaches, internal ailments. If you had a little bellyache, eat some mummy medicine. it'd cure it. Obviously, when I say people, I mean the Victorians, because they were the only society that had enough gumption to stick their fingers and toes in everything they shouldn't have. And somewhere along the way, they decided to eat the mummies. Like, honestly. Obviously, we've got the British Museum to blame for this, because when they discovered these mummies, they just took what they wanted. And they took all these mummified people, animals, cats, dogs, birds, everything they could get their little hands on. They took them and they shipped them over to Europe and the Western world, and we had mummy mania. Because they took so much, we then had a surplus of mummies. At first, people would buy them as collectibles, and the Victorians would hold parties where you would unwrap a mummy. Like, talk about a showstopper. They also made them into paint. There was a really popular colour called mummy brown in lipstick and like a paint shade, which was apparently really popular in bedrooms and in bathrooms in the Victorian era. And again, it was a true sign of wealth to have this shade. You can still find antique tubs of this paint and you can buy it online, but just be careful. You know, I've seen too many horror movies about messing with shit like this. Like I said, they had gumption. Because they stole so much, they then had a surplus of mummies and people didn't really want to collect them anymore. Mummy mania were dying down. So they decided to be really resourceful with these people. And again, they ground them down, people and animals, and they used them as fuel and coal. So they would heat up people's homes, factories, buildings. They would also drive some cars as fuel as well. And they also decided to grind them down and use them as like a special fertilizer. There's actually a case in France where they had a whole necropolis of monkeys that grew the best beetroots in the world, apparently. Delicious, right? Like, what? For a short while as well, archaeologists and historians really believed that Egyptians could have migrated over to the colder side of Europe, because people were finding like ancient gems and relics in large plots of lands and farmers' fields, until it clicked with someone and went, actually, do you remember that time when we used mummies as fertilizer? All these relics were just the remnants of what were mummified with the mummies as, you know, offerings and respect, and we just ground them down and chucked them in a field in Wales. So if you find like an ancient Egyptian sphinx or beetle in your back garden, you probably know why it's there. But I always found this interesting, and another slice of tragic history where nobody respects anything. So the Pekin wife, let's go over some details that I missed out. So she's got a name. Her name is Lynn, and the husband's called Ben. Really normal couple, together for 6 years, married for 11 months before this started happening. Their life was great. Happily married, lived together, no red flags for 6 years before the wife started acting up like this. In the story as well, it's also mentioned that Ben loved horror movies, loved it. Lynn hated anything horror, hated any pranks, was a very stern woman when it came to pranks and horror and jokes. She didn't like it, she didn't want to be a part of it. The first couple of little peeks were just innocent little things that Ben thought, oh, she's just being a bit kooky, a bit silly. And when he confronted her, at first she would laugh about it, and she was like, well, you scare me enough, so we're even now. Her peaks obviously got scarier and scarier when she's underneath tables, in ottomans, just being a weirdo. Ben says that his life was a living hell. He was constantly living in fear, having to look behind corners, behind sofas, check everything because he thought she was going to be there. He was living in fear. Ladies, take notes. It got really scary when she was peeking at him in the shower. Now, what I didn't mention is that he was by himself that weekend. Lynn had gone to see friends or family, and he was just playing on his Xbox or whatever men do, and he decided to have a shower before bed. And I'm going to read out what's actually written because it is gross. It's disgusting. Lynn was peeking from behind the shower curtain, her entire head stretched into the shower, leaving just her body outside. Her long dark hair hung against the curtain, the ends dripping with water. Her mouth hung open in a terrible grin, eyes wide and red as if she hadn't blinked in a while. I screamed and jumped back against the wall. She didn't move, nor did her smile waver. Her makeup ran down her cheeks into 2 black streaks. She looked giddy and completely deranged. Yeah, we stood like that for a few minutes, neither of us saying a word. Finally, after what felt like forever, she slowly pulled her head back out of the shower, and I watched her blurry figure through the curtain as she moved backwards towards the bathroom door. Now we know that she never left. She just pretended to leave and stood in the bathroom with him for 45 minutes, staring at him from a cupboard. He married that. Now, when he stayed at his brother's house, we know she was creeping on him there, and she was sending him some texts. These texts read, "Can we talk? I love you. Please call me. I'm really worried. Can you answer? Just come home." We know when he goes home, there's an absolute crime scene for animals, eyeballs everywhere, just awful. He runs after him with some glass. They call 911, happened in America, and they get in the car and they drive away. He has to go to the hospital because he needs to get stitches in his arms, and he can't go to his brothers, his friends, or his family because he's just so scared that she's going to just terrify them as well. And I do think she's haunting him. I know people say stalking, but haunt. He's being haunted by his wife. It's disgusting. He goes to a motel and he's just there for a little while until he gets a text from her that says, "I found you," with a picture of the motel attached. No. The original creator of this story is Malia Girl 1314, written on the No Sleep subreddit on Reddit. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. You know it is.